Hi, welcome to Russian History of Russia. Today we're going to cover pre-Christianized Kievan Rus and its relations with its neighbors and its first rulers, including my favorite, a Russian Cersei Lannister, who went on a revenge killing spree, murdered a bunch of people, and then got canonized by two churches. Oh, Russia.
It's big, it's cold, it's full of gas and gold. It's 1200 years old, but still never does as told. We're Christians, but not really Europeans, but from Asia. We send the dogs to space and kill the Tsars on occasion. We drink sodas made from bread, eat our enemies in kasha, and that's why it's so fun to study history of Russia.
Our last episode ended on the foundation of Kievan Rus in Novgorod around 862, with Rurik as its first ruler. Besides being the first, Rurik didn't really do anything particularly famous, although two of his Viking buddies did go all the way south to Constantinople, the capital of the East Roman Empire, also known as Byzantine, where they caught the Byzantine who didn't get the memo about the whole Scandinavian Slavic love affair moving their way completely by surprise. They devastated the suburbs of Constantinople, got more than they could carry, and turned back. However, on their way to Constantinople, they had captured a Khazarian outpost. So on their way back, they never reached Novgorod. Instead, they decided to stay and rule there. When Rurik died around 879, his son was way too young, so the power went to his second-in-command, Oleg, who became a regent. Oleg went south, recaptured Kiev, and proclaimed it the mother of all Rus cities. He also included many surrounding tribes into his state, some with force, while some said they don't really care who to pay tribute to, him or Khazars, so they joined. Kievan Rus did not yet have your garden variety king and his subjects, but rather princes who paid tribute to whichever prince had the biggest stick, which was the Kievan one, and if they were lucky got to go on fun plundering adventures with him and collected the tributes. Besides money, tributes were paid in fur, honey, and other products. So it was really neat when in 907 and in 911, Oleg managed to sign some really favorable trade treaties with Byzantine Empire, literally the most powerful state entity there was at the time. For the next few centuries, Kievan Rus prospered on the lateral river trade that moved goods and slaves between north and south. In the east, Volga River connected northern Europe through Baltic Sea all the way to Middle East through Caspian Sea, while in the west, river Dniepr, which Kiev sits on, was known as the path from Varangians to the Greeks and allowed trade to flow from Constantinople and the Black Sea into northern and central Europe. While it sounds like an easy gig, in reality it was a pretty complex system. Only part of the route was a large river. The rest were lakes and springs of different sizes, with an actual sea in the end. All of that required different vessels, knowledgeable guides, and in some sections dragging the boats on wheels over land. Luckily, we always had that famous Russian winter, and dragging boats over ice is much easier than over swampland. So Oleg ruled until his death in 912, and then Igor took over. And with his rule begins a story of one of only two badass female rulers in Russian history. So Igor was clearly keen on booty. In 941, he had his booty handed to him and his fleet destroyed when he tried to attack Byzantine. He clearly wasn't the one to take no for an answer, because just in a couple of years he gathered men again and went south with a bold plan to do some warring and plundering in Byzantine. When Byzantine Emperor heard about that, he just sent him a bunch of gifts instead, and they turned back. And I just can't not giggle about this. Like, ugh, those weirdos from the north marching on us again, and I'm so not in the mood, just send them some nom-noms or something. And it totally worked. Igor was like, well, worked for me, turn around. So they go back and evidently go through all the nom-noms in just a couple of years because his squad starts complaining for more. Igor looks around the room and doesn't see anybody from the tribe of Drevlian. By the way, I just tried to pronounce that with an American accent and my jaw hurts, so for now I'm just keeping it in caps. So Igor and his pals go and plunder that tribe. And if that wasn't enough, Igor, for reasons really unclear besides naive greed, sends the majority of his men back to Kiev while he himself returns back for more. Now, as much as Drevlian enjoyed his first visit, the second one seemed like a bit of an overstay. So they captured and executed him. One Byzantine source even describes a particularly gruesome tradition chosen for that. With two trees bent and tied together with the victim between them, trees then released two Igors. Although that story is not supported by any Slavic sources, so chances are pretty high it's made up. So Igor had a wife, Olga, who becomes the regent ruler because their son Svyatoslav is again too young. By the way, notice the sleek transition from Scandinavian naming tradition into Slavic? Olga starts her reign with two things. One, she reforms the tribute collection system, making it much more organized and more clear to avoid such misunderstandings in the future. And as another order of business, she had some revenging to do. It is told as a story of 4 revenges. The Drevlian's ruler, look at that, I did say it, Prince Mal, being surprisingly bad at logic, proposes to Olga, the widow of the guy he just murdered, and Olga accepts and invites his ambassadors to a feast. Ambassadors arrive by boat and get picked up by the Kievan crowd, still in the boat, and carried inside, being all like, wow, these guys must really like us. That is, of course, until their boat is thrown in a giant ditch and they're buried alive. And thus, the first revenge was done. But Olga was just getting started. She sends Mal a message suggesting that he sends his best men to escort her from Kiev to Drevlian land to get married, eggplant emoji. As said, being not that bright and probably concluding that first diplomatic mission is having a grand time in Kiev, Mal does exactly that. The new party is invited to a banya, a Russian bathhouse, which is then set on fire and they burn alive. Thus, the second revenge. Olga then sends Drevlians yet another message. Guys, I promise I'm on my way. Could you please set the tables next to my dead husband's grave? We're having my bachelorettes there. During the feast, Drevlians are massacred by her man. The primary chronicle states as many as 5,000 dead. She then gathers the rest of her army, marches through their lands, and puts their capital under siege. Now they finally get the message. They defend the city for a whole year, get pretty tired, and go, "What do you want from us, woman? We got furs, we got honey. What?" But Olga replied that at that moment they had neither honey nor furs, but that she had one small request to make. "Give me 3 pigeons," she said, "and 3 sparrows from each house. I do not desire to impose a heavy tribute like my husband, but I require only this small gift from you, for you're impoverished by the siege." Drevlians were like, wow, so far she's got great track record. I believe her. So they give her all she asked for and go to sleep with a smile. That night, Olga orders to tie to each bird a cloth with sulfur, then sets them on fire and releases the birds that all fly back to their nests in the city, setting the whole city ablaze and burning it to the ground. And that is how you get over a badly ended relationship. One other thing that Olga is known for is her conversion to Christianity, which happened during her mission to Constantinople around late 950s. We don't have any evidence as to why she did that, but knowing what we know about her, it was probably political. Back then, it didn't go further than Olga. Even her son, Svyatoslav, who took over in early 960s, rejected it, but she was later canonized for that. She's a saint in both Russian Orthodox and Roman Catholic churches, with this lovely wholesome religious imagery dedicated to her as a result. But personally, I think taking her earlier years in power into consideration, you'd agree that this 19th century portrait by Nikolai Bruni is a much better fit. I mean, come on. Olga retained most of her power in Kiev until her death in late 960s, even though her son Svyatoslav was an adult. And that is because he was away all the time, making war in all directions. His reign was marked by a defeat of both major competitors of Rus in the region, the Khazar Khaganate and the First Bulgarian Empire, although the latter was immediately consumed by Byzantine after his death. This and many other military campaigns drastically expanded the Rus. However, while Svyatoslav was really good at warfare, he was pretty bad at empire building. Like many talented conquerors, he didn't spend enough time solidifying new territories as organic parts of his state, nor did he ensure clarity over his descendants' claims to the rule. As a result, after his death, many of his conquered lands were lost, and his sons fought each other until only one remained. That son's reign is what we're going to talk about in episode 3. So that is it. Coming up next, Russia playing historical Russian roulette with religion, Kievan Rus and his golden age, as well as fragmentation and decline. See you then.